Sports Day. It was Sports Day and Patrick was excited. The first event was the egg and spoon race. Patrick was ready. Go! Patrick balanced the egg as best he could and headed to the finish line. But Mr. Egg had already raced far ahead. He had a spoon taped to his side. Mr. Egg won. Well, technically, an egg and spoon did cross the finish line. But it didn't seem fair. Nevertheless, it was on to the next event. The three-legged race. Patrick and Artie tied themselves together and started their wobbly hobble to the finish line. But Miss Spider had a sneaky idea. And no sooner had Patrick and Artie started than Miss Spider had already crossed the finish line. Miss Spider had lots of legs. It was easy for her to use just 3 of them. Technically, her 3 legs did cross the line first. But it didn't seem fair. Next up, the tug-of-war. Patrick got a strong, tight grip on the rope. He was ready. Until he realized he was up against Big Bunny. Big Bunny was exceptionally big and exceptionally strong. In one quick tug, Big Bunny had won the game. And Patrick was left defeated. Big Bunny had certainly won the tug-of-war. But it didn't seem fair. It was time for the final challenge, the great race. Patrick started his run. He wasn't the fastest, but he kept on running. As Patrick jogged along, he found Mr. Egg lying on the ground. Poor Mr. Egg had tripped and bonked his head. Well, Patrick couldn't just leave Mr. Egg behind. So he picked him up, and off they went. But just a few feet further down the road, Patrick found Miss Spider. Her legs had tangled, and she couldn't continue. Well, Patrick couldn't just leave her there. So, he carried Miss Spider too. As Patrick slowly made his way down the road, he saw another familiar face. It was Big Bunny. Big Bunny was exceptionally big, but he only had little legs, and he was very tired. "All right, let's go," said Patrick. And off they went. Mr. Egg, Miss Spider, Big Bunny, and of course, Patrick. The finish line was in sight. Patrick was so close. But the load was just too heavy, and Patrick was exhausted. Patrick went tumbling and sent the group flying. Patrick slumped to the ground, exhausted, leaving Mr. Egg alone at the finish line. This was it! Mr. Egg could win the great race! But it didn't seem fair. So, Mr. Egg lifted Patrick up and passed him to Miss Spider, who passed him to Big Bunny, who placed Patrick down right at the finish line. Patrick won the great race! Hooray for Patrick! The end.